Our next speaker hardly requires an introduction. Most people at this conference know this person. She also spoke at CHL's last conference 2 years ago. She is someone who, for me, emulates the values of courage and humility like few people that I've ever met. Degan Ali is the Executive Director of Adeso and has more than 20 years of hands-on experience in the humanitarian and development field. Degan is a strong believer in transforming the current aid system to give more power and voice to local communities and civil society organizations. Following this belief, she continues to innovate and develop new solutions to build the infrastructures that will truly shift power and resources, including co-founding the very important Network for Empowered Aid Response, or the NEAR network. Degan and I met virtually less than 1 year ago when I reached out to her with courage and humility to ask if she would co-convene this gathering with me. Thankfully, she agreed, and we started a true partnership to co-develop and co-lead this endeavor. Thank you, Degan, for your leadership in this space. You have inspired me countless times, and thank you for jumping in with me on this big adventure. Please welcome Degan Ali.
Thank you, Mariana. It's such a privilege to be here. Thank you for to the CHL team for organizing such an amazing event, particularly Mariana and Liz. Adeso is very honored to have been given the opportunity to co-organize this important event. I'm personally very grateful to Mariana, who approached me a year ago, as she mentioned, when we didn't even know each other. And she just contacted me and said, would you be willing to help me organize this event? And at that time, my first request was that this conference does not become another talk shop like the hundreds of humanitarian events that I have been to, hundreds. So we do a lot of talking in this sector, but no real action. Let's just reflect on the World Humanitarian Summit, which I personally invested huge amounts of effort and time into. There were 2 years of consultations all across the world. Thousands and thousands of human hours were involved in working on the event in the background. Those of us who engaged in the process from the Global South also spent thousands of human hours on it. Millions of dollars were spent in flying us all over the world and in nice hotels. But now reflecting back on it 5 years later, what major substantive transformative things have we achieved? I'm sorry to say, but very little, if any. And that's really quite disappointing. So this conference has been designed to be the first of its kind. I have personally never participated or spoken at a large humanitarian conference where we truly come together as a sector to address the elephant in the room, which is power, race, and colonialism. We have talked about localization ad nauseum, mostly through technocratic lens. However, localization does not cut it for us. It is a term that's loaded with all the wrong things that we want to dismantle. Our communities and countries don't need to be localized. We don't need the global North people to do something to us or for us. We need global North organizations to recognize their purposeful neo-colonial role in perpetuating an aid system that is all about continuing the power dynamics that continue to keep us in poverty and in a position of need. We demand that you take stock and accountability of your complicity in the economic, financial, and trade mechanisms that continue the invisible chains of colonialism in our countries. Your aid programs are not lifting our people and our countries out of poverty, but rather ensuring that policies around trade and food subsidies continue their insidious and chronic destruction. You all come in to supposedly fix the conditions caused by a drought or a famine that is wholly man-made from economic and trade policies that failed us. So here are some 4 recommendations for the sector that are both personal and political. Number 1, you need to do the hard work as white and black and brown people on recognizing our role in perpetuating the above and how we have benefited from it. Most white people in the sector are good people with good intentions. Some have done the hard work of recognizing their privilege and how they have benefited. Some continue to think that their good intentions are enough and have not spent the time required for deep personal reflection. Some, a small minority, I would like to say, simply are a lost cause and need to leave the sector altogether. This past year, I have been surprised by the number of white people, mostly women, who have said that as white people, they should exit their senior roles and leave it to a person of color. While some of my Global South colleagues or people of color may disagree with me, I am not a proponent of getting only people of color in all decision-making positions. Yes, we need more diversity and power to be devolved to, especially to staff working in country with communities. But we also need white allies and solidarity. Having all white people exit the sector, especially those who have done the hard journey of personal and deep reflection, is not in our benefit. As Black and brown people, we also need to own our own elite status in our countries and how we continue to play this game, because we want more money, we want more funding. We need to have the courage to walk away from money and not let it be the driving force of our decisions. We need to refashion our organizations so that they're not solely dependent on the whims and changes of our INGO and UN partners. We need to create resilient and nimble organizations that do not follow the business model of INGOs and UN that say success is to be measured by how large your organization's income is. We need to develop our own metrics of success that is rooted in truly advocating for the best interest of our communities. Number two, we need true global civil society solidarity that involves both Global South and North institutions to advocate for changes in our global governance institutions, specifically the Bretton Woods institutions. We cannot simply say that such reforms are too impossible. Would we have been able to predict in 2018 or even 2019 the kind of changes and reforms that 2020 and 2021 have brought us? I certainly could not have never have predicted the impact that the death of George Floyd and COVID-19 were going to have in reshaping US institutions and globally getting us to the level where we are having this important discourse. We are at a watershed moment right now, and the decisions we make in the next 3 to 6 months will have major ramifications on our respective organizations and the entire sector. We do not need aid. We need fair and just economic, financial, and trade policies to lift our people out of poverty. That should be the driving force behind our work for the next 20 years. Number three, we need to redesign our humanitarian decision-making forums, such as the IAC, the Grand Bargain clusters, and so on. All of these fora are dominated by the global north and designed solely for the purpose of serving the interest of the UN, INGOs, and donors. None of these forums reflect any effort to share power and include global south institutions, including and especially the national governments. Number four, let's put a stop to using harmful terminology and narrative like localization and embrace more appropriate lexicon like decolonization. Let's stop having DEI and localization strategies, but rather strategies to decolonize our institutions and the aid architecture. So I would like to end by saying, let's use this conference to reflect on what role we can play in ensuring that these recommendations and more are achieved. This list is not exhaustive. Let us not walk away from this conference ready for more talk, but rather we need to walk away with personal commitments for more action. In this sector, we are very good at pontificating and talking, but we're very bad at making change happen. I hope that this conference will inspire and motivate us to finally make the long-awaited and very important change that is needed, that is long-awaited, that is extremely delayed, finally happen. Thank you.